I understood the Senate side, Kavanaugh, among some other important things. Here's the problem. I still don't know what the House of Representatives on the Republican side was running on. I still don't know what the message was. And I would have thought with the economy as it was going and the president out there, while it wasn't a blue wave by any means,
right?
Why did they take so many seats?
Yeah.
Jim Jordan.
Well, you're right. I don't think we matched, on the House side in our races, I don't think we matched the intensity that the president has displayed here in this town, taking on the establishment, taking on the swamp, taking on this town. And remember, everywhere the president went, he made a huge difference. You talk about Missouri, you talk about Indiana, you talk about Florida. We got a Freedom Caucus guy who's now the governor of the state of Florida, one of our largest states.
Ron DeSantis.
He came to Ohio on the Monday before. The projections were we might lose all statewide races. We won them all but one. And that's because the president came to Ohio. So the president, there was an intensity and energy about this guy that the American people appreciate. They saw that matched in the Senate when the Senate stood up and defended Kavanaugh, but they haven't seen it from the House. I mean, have we replaced Obamacare? Have we reformed welfare? Have we secured the border? Those were the three biggest promises we made the American people.
The leadership there would say, well, wait a minute, we sent that stuff to the Senate. Is that true?
Some of that went to the Senate, only the health care bill. We didn't do a welfare reform package yet, and we certainly haven't secured the border. We had a good bill, as you know, Mark, that we all supported as conservatives, that Chip was campaigning on the campaign trail, but we only got 193 votes because we couldn't get enough Republicans to do what we said we were going to do. So the message should have been in this campaign, we've accomplished what we told you we were going to do, more importantly, what you elected us to do in 2016. That should have been the message, but we couldn't say that because all we had really gotten done was the tax cuts. So this is going forward. We have to regain the trust of the American people and get accomplished those. Tell them, if you put us back in power, we're going to get those things done.
Chip Roy, what did you campaign on in your successful race?
So my message was pretty simple. I ran, as Congressman Jordan just alluded to, I ran on securing the border, I ran on healthcare freedom, and I ran on balancing the budget. And these are all things that Republicans have said they would do for a long time, but failed to do. And if you want to know what happened, you don't need to look any further than the fact that the Republicans literally failed to do what they said they would do over the last several years. I think that this is a clear symptom of leadership failing to do their job, to paint with bright colors, to use the language that Reagan used. We had the opportunity of a lifetime to actually gain in a midterm. The American people were hungry. I can tell you in my district, they're hungry for leadership. They are happy to see the president shaking things up in Washington, breaking the status quo, getting rid of 15 regulations for every one new regulation, getting us out of the Clean Power Plan, so-called, getting us out of the Paris Agreement, making sure we've got good judges. But I can tell you this, had it not been for the Democrats' blatant overreach in the Kavanaugh hearings, re-energizing our base, our base was demoralized and sitting back because the House leadership and the House Republicans weren't giving them a reason to support them. I don't literally even know what the message was from House Republicans on what they were trying to sell. I know what I sold, and it worked, and people listened.
But this is a good point. I can't even tell you today what the position in the act.
This is a Fox News alert. It's 4 minutes after 4 on the West Coast, and that's where President Trump is touring the damage of those devastating wildfires in northern and now southern California. He's in the Malibu area along with the governor-elect Gavin Newsom, taking a look at the forest fire, the Woolsey fire that has so badly damaged the areas around Malibu and beyond. That fire is about 80% contained right now. It has scorched nearly 100,000 acres and has destroyed more than 700 structures. 57,000, though, are still considered to be in danger. These, again, are live pictures of President Trump as he tours some of the devastation of the Woolsey fire in Malibu, California, with the governor-elect Gavin Newsom and other state officials. Our Kevin Cork has been traveling with the president, was with him earlier in the day when he was in Northern California. Kevin, bring us up to date.
I can just tell you this, John. It's very interesting being here on the ground. I know you have great experience in covering major disasters throughout your career. For the folks at home, you see the pictures and you think, I've seen one fire, I have seen them all. I can tell you here in Paradise, that's simply not the case. One White House official described it as apocalyptic. Another firefighter that we spoke with from Los Angeles said it was as if a fire tsunami struck this particular area. That made the president's visit here, John, that much more impactful and that much more important, not just to see firsthand the devastation here at Paradise and other places here in Northern California, but also to come to grips, John, with what has been a devastating problem for this state for quite some time. How best to manage the forest and to do all they can.
Let me interrupt you, Kevin. The president is speaking. We want to listen in.
What's lovely? You don't get much better than this, and you see the devastation. I guess the total you said of, what would you say, over 100,000? Just under over 100,000 acres, which is a tremendous amount of land. You know, 100,000 acres, people can't envision what that is. It's a tremendous piece of land, and it's devastating to see. I have to say the government officials have done an incredible job. When you look at this devastation, and I guess at this moment there are, in this area, there are 3 deaths so far. There's 3 deaths. It's pretty incredible. It's horrible, but it's also pretty incredible. The job they've done, they evacuated very early, and they took a lot of heat, and they made the right decision. So I congratulate you on that, because that's a lot of political pressure on not having to do it, because nobody thinks this is going to happen. They're all unhappy, but now they're very happy that they left. So that's a great decision. Law enforcement, again, first responders. The military really helped a lot in both sites that we visited today. And, of course, FEMA and Brock. I think Brock's done a great job. So maybe I'd ask you to say a few words, Brock. Brock Long of FEMA.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. President. So we're here not only down in Southern California, but also up in Paradise. And it's our job at FEMA to coordinate the firepower of the federal government down through the governor here to ultimately help the firefighters at the local level and police and emergency managers overcome this disaster. And so the assistance that we provide is not only going to be able to assist with the debris removal, but more importantly, taking care of people and mass care to also fire mitigation. So as you can see, as the wildfires go through an area like this, the land is scorched, and a little bit of rain is nice, but too much rain could be a problem too. So we're already trying to think ahead and work with our partners to try to mitigate what we can of the additional impacts coming. So
the towns and every place we visited, I see, and I've asked the question, they're all going to do an expedited rebuild, meaning the permits are going to come a lot faster than would normally be the case. Actually, this is an area where it's pretty tough to get permits, and I know they're going to go very fast with expediting and get it rebuilt and redone, and that's a great thing. That'll make things happen a lot faster. Jerry, would you like to say something?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I've signed an executive order to cut red tape and speed up the permit processes as well as other recovery actions. So that'll help. And all I can say is that we are going to have to learn a lot more about nature, about the wind, about the fire potential, about how to build, how not to build, how to escape, what measures of protection we can build in. And it's not going to be cheap, but I think we have to carefully really look into the facts here and take all that we learn and apply it going forward. And of course, I won't have to do that. Mr. Newsom will do that. So.
Thanks for the baton. Yeah. But I mean, it's just, the Mendocino fire, the Tubbs fire, the Thomas fire. I mean, you just go down this list. And this is unacceptable. We're at a point, past the point. People have had enough of this, and we got to deal with this head on. I mean, governor's done an amazing job with the legislature the last couple of years. We've invested a record amount of money into our efforts, but we have to do more, and this clearly underscores that. But I also want to underscore a more fundamental point, and that is the collaboration and cooperation we're getting from the federal government, and we're very grateful for that. There's no politics being played here. The president signed that emergency declaration immediately, and I cannot impress upon all the folks here how grateful I am for the conversations we've had, private, not just public, over the course of the last few hours, in terms of the expectation going forward that the federal government's not just going to be here today with all of you, but tomorrow and over the course of the next few years as we rebuild.
Yes, sir. That's true. 100%. We'll get it going. Like to say something?
I would just say, on behalf of CAL FIRE and the State Fire Department, throughout California, we still remain in critical fire weather. So as this fire and the fires up north continue to gain containment, the challenge isn't over. And through cooperation of agencies throughout California, we are successful. So thank you.
Good. Chief?
All right, well, Darrell Osby, Fire Chief, Los Angeles County Fire Department. On behalf of the County of Los Angeles, just really want to thank the governor and the president here for their presence to get the state and federal resources here and support as it relates to combating this fire, and also the resources to rebuild our community. But I also just want to thank my counterpart here from Cal Fire, and our law enforcement partners not here, but we had all hands on deck as it relates to trying to protect this community, and we were successful in getting up tens of thousands of people out. And unfortunately, we lost property, but we saved a lot too. If you can imagine hurricane-type force winds coming to this community, that we had firefighters and sheriffs protecting the citizens here. But in conclusion, just once again, Mr. President, Governor, thank you for your support. And we're looking forward to rebuilding our communities, and then also looking forward from the local, state, and federal level to really talk about these challenges and what we can do to mitigate and prevent these things from occurring in the future.
Thank you, Chief. Fellas?
Rick Mullen, Mayor of the City of Malibu. Mr. President, thank you very much for coming down here and showing your concern, and also thank you for all the support you've given us. Governor and Governor-elect, also appreciate everything you've done. Malibu took it on the chin here, but compared to the fire up north, we didn't lose as many lives. So if there's a silver lining here, it's that we saved a lot of lives, and then we paid for it in frustration for people who are outside. We've got the mandatory evacuation order, so thank you for all your patience. We're going to get you back in as quickly as possible. And for everybody who's suffered a loss here of all their personal belongings and their precious memories, we're going to do everything that we can with the assistance of these fine gentlemen to get it back together, and we will leave no stone unturned to come together, and Malibu will be strong again. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And Mr. President, appreciate Peter Foy, Ventura County Supervisor. I just appreciate everything you've done. I appreciate our fire, and both from LA County and Ventura County coming together to save lives, like you said. I mean, it was amazing being part of this stuff. We've seen a lot of tragedy in Ventura County with the shooting, the whole bit, and it's been amazing. But we will rebuild. We will get through this, and I do appreciate, Mr. President, your prayers, your wife's prayers, and the whole country's prayers for this community. We're strong here in California, and I appreciate the governor and the governor-elect being here to show that support, and we're going to get through this. But it's going to be tough, and I do appreciate it.
I want to get back to this issue of these hearings where they're going to be pushing out all these subpoenas. I believe in congressional oversight strongly. The FBI, the Department of Justice, the intelligence agencies, our tax money goes into these places. These are institutions that are authorized by Congress. They're funded by Congress. You have federal employees involved in activity. It's nothing to do with somebody's tax returns.
Right.
It's nothing to do with a private enterprise that's worth billions and billions of dollars, where members of Congress sit there and say, I'm going to pretend I'm an IRS agent, and I'm going to dig into this stuff, and I'm going to spew it out there, and I'm going to give it to my friends at CNN and MSNBC. I'm going to sabotage this administration. I'm going to drag it down. Former federal prosecutor. The Trump administration says, we're more than happy to work with you on matters of official conduct, on matters involving the administration. However, I have a blanket rule out there. Anything involving my family and me and our personal finances, you don't get anything. What about that argument?
Well, I think you're exactly right. And I think, I think about it through this lens that when we talk about separation of powers and what our job is in Congress to oversee the executive branch, and it's critically important that that be done, that's meant for, as you pointed out before, constitutional purposes. It's meant about the power of the executive branch being used and in its official duties and what it's trying to do, and whether or not it's constitutional, whether or not they're following the law. That's the job of Congress. The job of Congress isn't to go down fishing expeditions for personal assaults or going after the president's family. That's not what it's about. It's about protecting the Constitution. And frankly, you want to make Article 1 great again, which is something I talk about on the campaign trail, Article 1 Congress. Then Congress needs to reassert itself in governance, in passing laws, in not turning over power to the bureaucracy and the executive branch. They need to do their job in representing the people. That's where I think that we're missing the boat.
In the end, it's about freedom. There's a big difference between the IRS targeting people for their political beliefs and going after those folks and holding them accountable, which we've tried to do. There's a big difference in the FBI doing what they did and us trying to hold them accountable than it is going after people's personal finances and what the left is now telling us they're going to try to do to the president and his family. That is, it's ultimately about freedom. And I would argue today and I don't mean this to sound overly dramatic, but I think freedom's under attack. You are seeing it from all. We had a hearing, Mark, where we had college professors in. I asked this one college professor at the end of the hearing. I said, Professor, on a safe space or in a safe space on a college campus,
whatever that
could I say this sentence, Donald Trump is president? His response began with, well, Congressman, it depends. I interrupted him. I said, it's a fact. There's no it depends about it. He was elected on November 8th, 2016. He was sworn in January 2017. He lives at 1,600. He's the president of the greatest country ever. There's no it depends. But that's where the left's crazy thinking, when freedom is attacked, that's where it takes us. So this is fundamental. This is so fundamental. We should hold agencies accountable when they come in after your personal liberties, any American's personal liberties. But when Congress is going to use their power to go after the president just because they want to dig into his business finances, give me a break.
Well, they'll camouflage it. The very party that rejects so much that is in the Constitution and its original interpretation will now wave around the Constitution and say the Emoluments Clause. You see, they now found a clause, not a pretend clause. You know, they found a clause, the Emoluments Clause, and they'll say, this is why we need to determine if the President of the United States finances are appropriate, or Russia collusion to see if he got anything from Russia or anything like that. That's no basis for oversight. What they're trying to do there is lay a fake foundation for impeachment. The oversight function is a legislative function. They're trying to figure out, you all are trying to figure out appropriations. Maybe we need to rejigger an agency. Maybe we need to eliminate a program or something like that. Right. You don't get to look over the president's shoulder and look at his finances. Now, let me ask you this question. So if somebody's wealthy and they get elected president of the United States, will this now be the new pattern? If the Democrats can drag a wealthy Republican president through the dirt, now the Republicans, let's say this guy Bloomberg, God forbid, gets elected, you know what? You're 3-4 times wealthier, reportedly, than this president. We want your tax returns. We want to know, did you ever talk to your reporters? We want to know about all your businesses. And so is this going to be the new trend?
Well, I think there's no question that when they start opening Pandora's box, that's the direction that it goes. And then where does that stop? And where does it go with respect to, people who are working in the administration and Congress? But again, all of this stuff is taking all the eyes off the prize of what the American people actually want to see accomplished. And you're talking about freedom being under assault. It's under assault because Republicans are just laid down on the ground and they won't stand up to defend freedom. Whether we're talking about what we're talking about here with the misuse of government power to go after people in the administration or the president's family, or whether it's failing to actually articulate the cause of freedom and stand up on the issues that we believe in, of course the left is going to take advantage of that. We saw that with why so many Democrats ran as openly socialist and Democrat as in their agenda.
By the way, most of them lost.
That's right. Yeah. But they also got millions of votes in part because some of our people didn't stand up and proudly trumpet freedom and the issues that we know we want to stand by.
Isn't this one of the reasons people, the conservative base, love Donald Trump?
Yes.
And as a matter of fact, during the Kavanaugh hearings, all of a sudden there's Lindsey Graham.
Yes.
Now, Lindsey Graham is really appreciated by conservatives and so many more people because he gave that, may I steal it, a Spartacus-type speech, right?
Yeah, sure enough. They want to see you fight for the things that count. That's what they want to see. And they want to see that particularly in light of the context we're in now. Think about today's left. Today's left says we're going to applaud Kaepernick when he disrespects the flag. We're going to embrace Governor Cuomo when he stands up and says America was never that great. And we're going to cheer on Maxine Waters when she says go out and harass anyone who supports the president. That's today's left. And our conservative, and I think most Americans with common sense say, we want someone to stand up and fight that. That's not who we are and what our country's, that's not why our nation's such a great nation. Fight that. And they see the president doing. They need to see more from Congress doing the same thing.
And that's why the left is emboldened to put out things like Medicare for all, right? They're going out there and saying, you know what I believe? I believe in healthcare freedom or healthcare for all, allowing people to be able to access the doctors of their choice, to have somebody who can come to your house. You can pay them $100 a month and have access to them, have their cell phone. You can have nurses. You can have insurance that you carry from one job to the next. These are all things that we can do if we'll stand up and fight for them to lower the cost of healthcare. And we go down that path for a while talking about it, but we turned over the field to the Democrats by saying that we're going to play on their field on pre-existing conditions and ceded ground on that.
One of the things Reagan used to do and Jack Kemp used to do, they used to say, enterprise zones, tax cuts across the board. They used to talk about freedom. They used to be very positive.
Aspirational.
They used to embrace aspirational. They used to embrace our principles. And then the Democrats are stuck sounding like green-eyed shade bureaucrats.
Touring damage of those devastating wildfires in northern and southern California. These are live pictures. The president arriving in Southern California a short time ago to tour damaged areas in Malibu after the Woolsey fire ripped through, claiming 3 lives there. He's with Governor Jerry Brown and the incoming Governor Gavin Newsom. The fire is about 80% contained around Malibu. It's burned more than 700 structures. 57,000, though, are still in danger. This morning, the president stopped in Northern California, seeing firsthand the devastation from the Camp Fire, which is now considered the deadliest wildfire in the U.S. in a century. At least 71 people have died in that fire. An estimated 1,000 more are unaccounted for. We'll bring you updates here on Fox News, but for now, I'm John Scott. Now back to Life, Liberty, and Levin.
I'm back with Chip Roy and Jim Jordan. Jim Jordan. So the President of the United States, through his Chief of Staff, tells the Attorney General he wants his resignation. The Attorney General is a very decent man, a good man, and by the way, may run again for his old seat. And I think he's an excellent senator. There may have been a mismatch in terms of the Department of Justice. And so they appoint his Chief of Staff, a former U.S. Attorney, to be the acting Attorney General. So first we have these so-called experts on TV saying, "Oh, that's not right. You got to follow succession." Well, of course that's wrong. So he's the acting Attorney General. Then we get the gaggle of leftists out there saying it's a constitutional crisis unless the acting Attorney General recuses himself from the investigation. The acting Attorney General had nothing to do with anything. Why should he recuse himself?
He shouldn't.
And meanwhile, Rosenstein is there with all kinds of conflicts. Can you explain that to me?
You're right. Mr. Whitaker should not recuse himself. Mr. Rosenstein has a conflict he's had from the very beginning.
What is that?
He wrote the memo that became the basis for firing James Comey that the left says, oh, that's obstruction of justice. Mr. Rosenstein is now overseeing the special counsel whom he appointed, Robert Mueller, and Robert Mueller is looking into, was there obstruction of justice into the firing of James Comey? You've got to be kidding me. And we've pointed this out for, this is why.
He's a witness.
Of course. We've pointed this out from day one. But Mr. Rosenstein, no, it's all fine. The other problem with Rod Rosenstein is we've asked for the McCabe memos. Sorry, you're not going to see them. They've even been subpoenaed by Congress. We've asked to see parts of the FISA. Sorry, we're not going to show it, even though everyone in Congress has a clearance. We've asked to see the Bruce Orr 302s. We've asked to see Jim Baker, former chief counsel.
The 302s are the FBI interview notes.
Yeah, those are the notes when Bruce Orr, whose wife worked for the company, who hired Christopher Steele, who put together the
all this is going to come to an end.
Well, that's why we got a lot of work to do between now and the first of the year when the.
But my question is this: just as your former federal prosecutor, just as a constitutional, rational matter, why would an acting Attorney General have to recuse himself? Because the Democrats demand that he recuses himself.
No, well, the Democrats are the same people. I saw something yesterday where Elizabeth Warren is saying this is a constitutional crisis. You remember in June of 2017, it was a crisis because Jeff Sessions, was the Attorney General. I mean, they can't get any of their stories straight, right? They're looking for a crisis where there isn't one, and unfortunately ignore the ones where there are problems. And that's what we've seen time and time again. And frankly, it's partly, though, why I think the American people are so frustrated is seeing this continued pursuit, continued coming down a rabbit trail, and instead of focusing on the issues they care about. None of this is making anybody's lives better, taking care of their health care, taking care of food on their plates, making sure they've got jobs and food and shelter and clothing. All of this is D.C. being the swamp at its worst.
Here's one other thing, though, guys, about Rod Rosenstein. It's alleged that he said he was going to wear a wire and record the commander-in-chief of our great country. It's alleged that he was talking about the 25th Amendment. All in that critical time frame between March 9th, when his memo was the basis for firing James Comey, and March 17th of 2017, when he named Bob Mueller. This is all supposed to have happened in that time frame, and he won't answer our questions. That is wrong.
They talk about the Saturday Night Massacre. This is like I want the younger viewers to know, like the Saturday Night Massacre. Now, in the Saturday Night Massacre, Richard, at least it's getting better. They've been comparing our president to Hitler. Now they're comparing him to Nixon. So, we're moving down the line here. So, but the Saturday Night Massacre, Nixon ordered his Attorney General to fire the special counsel, Archibald Cox. He refused and resigned. Then he ordered the Deputy Attorney General. He refused and he resigned.
Right.
Next in line, he directed Robert Bork, the Solicitor of the United States. He said, look, I don't agree with it, but somebody has to do it. He is the president. He is the executive branch, and he fired him. That's why they kept him off the Supreme Court, by the way. Has the President of the United States ordered anybody to fire Mr. Mueller?
He said just the opposite. He said just the opposite. Let him complete his investigation, because there's nothing there. And guess what? There's nothing there. There has been not one bit of evidence to show any type of coordination, collusion, conspiracy between the Trump campaign and Russia's influence in the election. But we know the Clinton campaign, like I said before, hired the law firm, who hired Fusion, who hired Christopher Steele, a foreigner, who then went and did what? Talked to Russians to do what? Put together a fake dossier that was the basis. This is what just, I cannot believe this happened in our country, was the basis for the FBI going to a secret court to get a warrant so they could spy on the other campaign. And the Democrats say, oh, nothing there. What? Are you kidding me?
Chip Roy, what about the media's role here? The media clearly, they can't disguise it anymore. They've sided with one political party against the other. They obviously are very excited about what the Democrats are going to do. I mean, after the election, it was clear the Democrats were taking the House. Jake Tapper on CNN excitedly and repeatedly was talking about all the subpoenas that are going to fly, and maybe the I word, impeachment, will be brought up. And so they definitely have the media on their side. We saw this press conference the other day where CNN's representative, Jim Acosta, literally was trying to disrupt and sabotage the press conference. The purpose of a presidential press conference is for we, the people, to find out what's going on, not for people to become provocative and make news. So you guys, the Republicans in that, you're not going to have the press, most of the press on your side. But hasn't that always been the case?
Look, there's no question that there's been bias in media. And I grew up as a child in the Reagan era, and I remember watching all these press briefings. You have Sam Donaldson sitting there sparring with Ronald Reagan and so forth. But I think there is a certain edge to today's media that is a little different even, and it's even worse. What we saw with Acosta, it's terrible, but Acosta is all about himself. The White House for him is a prop. Right? He's using that to leverage and promote himself. It's not about journalism and seeking the truth. He's making opinion news. He doesn't even need to be in the White House in order to do what he does, right? He can opine about it from the back benches somewhere. The reality is that they're using this for a show and to prop themselves up instead of honoring their responsibility in a free press and a democracy to seek the truth wherever it may go.
Well, that press conference on the media was an absolute disgrace. And they disgrace themselves in front, not just the country, but the entire world. And it is not their job to disrupt a press conference. They can ask tough questions, and also to push away, and he did push away the White House intern, and so it was really quite disgraceful. We'll be right back.